Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Wayne, Michigan, June 22nd, 2025, 11 o'clock a.m. You had that ridiculous meme about black fatigue? Well, we have yet another story of what I think can be called white fatigue, and I'm sure the people are tired of dodging bullets. There's been a number of mass shooting stories in the U.S. this year alone, which tragically are now normal because they're allowed to be, but here's a story about an attempted mass murder at a church in a Detroit suburb that I'll bet you didn't hear about. Even though this was an attempted slaughter at a church, the white media buried it. A little after 11 o'clock a.m. on June 22nd, a man had shown up at Cross Point Church in Wayne, Michigan. This man was a member of the church, as was his mother. This morning, however, he wasn't there to worship. The gunman exited his Nissan truck wearing a tactical vest, armed with an AR-15 and a handgun, when he approached the church building and began firing his weapon. Services at the Vacation Bible School were just ending when this started. The collection had just been passed when the people inside the church heard the sound of gunfire. One parishioner said that's when someone ran to the window and announced there was an active shooter. A live stream video shows people carrying children or directing them to get down and move away. "Come on, everybody to the back," a woman calls out. The woman, who was initially crouching between two rows of seats, stood and waved her arms. "Please, everyone come to the back." Though while some church members were taking cover, others were taking action.
In this room, just on the other side of these windows here.
Outside Cross Point Community Church in Wayne, Deacon Richard Pryor is opening up for the first time about making a split-second decision to run over a gunman with his pickup truck.
As soon as he got out of the vehicle, I saw the fatigues, I saw the gun on his hip, and then he pulled his weapon out of the vehicle.
He says his first memory of an attempted mass shooting on Sunday is of an eerie conversation he had with him before the gunman started firing.
Kind of pulled up, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, boss." "Hey, boss, are you okay? Everything all right?" And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't respond. It's not a smile. It's not a smirk. He just kind of looks at me.
Seconds later, with no prior police or military training, Pryor says he felt a calling to jump into action, flooring the gas, running over the shooter, who would eventually fire numerous rounds on Sunday. That action temporarily stopping the shooter, who responded by shooting into Richard's truck. As a result of this violent scene, Pryor's truck was destroyed, a vehicle he used to deliver bread for his day job. Thankfully, this GoFundMe page has now surpassed $25,000 to help get a replacement. As for this incredible act of bravery, the humble hero is just asking others to stay vigilant.
That gentleman's brave and selfless actions bought time for the members of the church's security team to lock the doors and meet the gunman near the front door, where they exchanged gunfire with him. The shooter was fatally wounded during this encounter, while a member of security suffered a non-fatal gunshot wound to the leg. Miraculously, that was the only injury reported that day. When police arrived, they began to administer CPR on the shooter. Now, how many times have we seen the thugs in blue gun down an unarmed black man or use an intentionally lethal chokehold, and nobody attempts any sort of CPR for the victim, not even the paramedics when they show up? If you're a black citizen, nothing is done, even though they're the victims of police violence. Meanwhile, for non-black criminals, this person can shoot up a church, a house of God, and when the cops arrive, they'll do everything they can to save the life of someone who's tried to kill as many innocent people as they could. And if they had been able to revive or otherwise keep this shooter alive, I wonder if they would have taken him immediately to Burger King afterwards. The shooter would be identified as 31-year-old Brian Browning. Months before the attack, Browning had visited the Cross Point Church to debate with the pastor, Bobby Kelly Jr.
He said he was a prophet. He said he heard from God.
Pastor Bobby Kelly Jr. said Browning had a private meeting earlier this year where he expressed religious concerns.
He asked some questions about the Bible. He kind of challenged me on some things in the Bible, and so we went back and forth about some scripture for a little bit.
The pastor saw him in February, and after a service, the two spoke.
Wondering if you can help me with some things. He seemed to be genuine about needing some help. I don't know exactly what it was because he didn't say. Didn't say it was mental health. It didn't say it was an issue that he had or any of that. He just said, could you help me with some things? And I said, sure.
But the next time Browning came back to the church was Sunday. How many rounds do you think this shooter shot?
He had an AR-15, and I know he reloaded twice and maybe 3 times.
We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power Tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. Now, for some strange reason, this story has not been wall-to-wall in the white media. Most of you never even heard of it. And no, all mass shooting incidents are not created equal. You can thank the white media for that. But this story hasn't gotten the coverage it deserves. And I think we can all guess why. The optics are terrible. Not only because of the shooter, but also because of the individual who's responsible for stopping his rampage. And I'm sure you've noticed that the man who stopped the latest suburban psycho, as well as the pastor who the would-be killer was arguing with, are both black. And you won't be surprised to learn that although this Browning creep allegedly had no criminal record, the police and the white media are already screaming that this was clearly some sort of mental health crisis. That's the phrase that they've been repeating more than any other. In fact, the police chief himself said that it appears that the shooter was suffering from a mental health break at the time of the shooting. Now, you got a cop who's diagnosing a dead man only a couple of hours after an active shooter event. Since when do the police moonlight as psychologists? They don't know anything about him, but they know that he must have been crazy, though. The predictable assertion that we never hear at any other time, a phrase that only gets dragged out when referring to a mass shooting by a member of the dominant society. You have Rodney Hinton, a genuine case of diminished capacity, and the white media has gone out of their way to not even hint that he was suffering a mental health crisis. And of course, the police don't dare say that either. And just 2 days ago, I told you about the case of Gad Black, a Louisiana black man who ridiculously is being charged under that state's hate crime law because he allegedly rammed a cop with his car. His girlfriend called the police and told them that this man was suffering a mental health crisis, but the white media pretends as if, oh no, there's nothing wrong with this guy at all. Well, let's make something clear. The Brian Brownings and the Dylan Roofs of this world, they're not crazy. They're not having a mental health crisis, they're having a power trip. That's what these mass shootings represent to them. This isn't someone who isn't being supported. This is someone who has been supported too much. America doesn't have a gun control problem. It has a racial privilege problem. The white media encourages dominant society killers to see themselves as tough guys instead of telling them the truth, that they're weak, coddled, and have a lot of growing up to do. They're pampered, they have a media that psychologically masturbates them full time, a society that feeds them every crumb of their daily bread, and yet somehow they're still angry about something. This is where racial privilege has put the society. These degenerates look to the Mother Emanuel Church massacre as being inspiration for their next big shoot-'em-up. They see killing scores of people as their way to get some quickie attention without having to earn it by doing anything positive. That's what it means to them. They feel as if the world is no longer kissing their behinds with sufficient adoration, so this is their plan B. And even with all of this going on, nobody's going to tell these guys who and what they are and how wrong they are. Instead, the society is going to continue to play along with the idea that, oh, this is just an aberration. Yeah, aberrations that are happening 2 to 3 times every single week. So the society has made up its mind that it's far more important to protect these mass shooters than it is to prevent the next one. And that being the case, whether you're at the movie theater, whether you're at the grocery store, or your local church, you now have to be on the lookout for some member of the dominant society who might decide that today is the day that they want to go show the world how important they are, and that killing you would be the best way for them to do that. And if the only thing that you're counting on to protect you is that the dominant society is going to have some sort of moral compass, and that they're going to respect even a house of God, well, if that's what you're thinking, then you don't have a prayer. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: David Williams, E. Rock, Julia Ragland, Robert Cook, and Ronald Williams. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.